thank you all for coming tonight. I know we have a lot more people kind of on their way from practice, but just because of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Ann Catherine Taylor, and I'm the Director of College Counseling. And tonight, I just wanted to offer a special thank you for our admissions experts up here who are sharing their time with us tonight. So I will go ahead and do a quick introduction. We have, kind of starting from the end, we have Allison North, and I'm going to wait to tell you where they're from until the end. I'll let them tell you where they're from. And then we have Annie Wells and Jose Eric Garcia and Lady Frances Hamilton and Katie Morgan. So they're coming kind of from all over, from different places, different types of institutions tonight to share their wealth of knowledge with you all. So when you walked in, you should have received a number, and in a little while we will kind of separate you into groups, but make sure you hold on to that number so you have an idea of where you will be going. But just to make sure, we're going to have parents on this side and students on this side, so make sure you are in the correct place. And today we are going to be serving as admissions officers for Millburn University. So we're going to discuss the candidates, and then as an admissions committee, we're going to vote to admit, waitlist, or deny each student. So you're going to be working with your specific committee and going to be coming to a decision together. Due to the space available in our first year class at Millburn University, we have room to admit one student, we have to deny one student, and you can waitlist if you choose a student, or you could choose to deny two students. It's up to you. For a waitlisted student, note that in most years, Millburn moves to our waitlist to round off the entering class. So keep that in mind as you are choosing to make these admissions decisions. So we will go ahead, before we get started, we will go ahead and divide you into our admissions groups. What numbers did we get to? Okay, so we're going to have, so for parents, if you are in group number 1, why don't you go to the first 3 rows where you can kind of be together and just kind of go down from there. So if you're in group number 2, kind of the next 3 rows, 3, and so on. So I'll give you all a little bit of time to do that, and same with students. If you are in group number 1, you're going to be in the first 3 rows, and just kind of sit close enough where you can discuss and talk to each other. I know it's kind of hard in the pews because we can't move the chairs around, but make sure that you can connect. So yeah, if you kind of want to hold up your group number so that people know where to go. So you're either in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, or 6. We also have group number 6. Yeah, so we should see some 1s in the front. Okay, so everybody should kind of be close to getting into their groups. So as we're kind of settling down before we get started, I wanted to talk a little bit more just about the importance of why we are doing this. So how many of you are sophomores? Raise your hand. Okay, and how many of you are juniors? Raise your hand. So we kind of have a different goal. If you are a sophomore, our goal for you tonight, or a parent of a sophomore, our goal for you tonight is to look at this as an opportunity to see what your experience has already been like thus far for your first 2 years of high school, and what you want your final 2 years of high school to look like, just kind of keeping in mind that you will eventually be submitting an application to college. And if you're a junior, you know, a lot of your high school experience has already happened. A lot of your academic profile has already been set. So what we really want you to take away from tonight is how you want to present yourself in your admissions application when you're applying to colleges. Because you really are putting together this package that you're reading. You have Dr. Warnock is passing around copies of the application, so you have this package that you're presenting to colleges. This is your opportunity to present yourself to them. So we want you to kind of look at a full view, a 360 view of what they're going to be reviewing when they're looking at your application and making an admissions decision about you. I will also just kind of put in a caveat. So, and just a thank you, we borrowed this case study from the Atlanta schools. They put together a case study as well, and they were gracious enough to let us borrow it. This case study, these students are really strong students. And this institution is a very selective institution. Many institutions that you may be applying to will not be this selective. We wanted to do this so you can kind of get an opportunity to look at what a highly selective institution looks like and what types of things are important to them. And we'll talk a little bit more about admissions priorities and how different institutions may view and make decisions, and our experts are especially going to talk about that at the end. Also, one thing before we get started, I wanted to just introduce the other college counselors. Like I said, my name is Ann Catherine Taylor, and I'm the Director of College Counseling, and Liz Young is also, she's at the University of Georgia right now. She's on their Counselor Advisory Board, so she's not able to be with us tonight, but I'll start with Kelly O'Mara and Meg Connor and Dr. Jennifer Warnock. So there are 5 of us in the office, and we are so excited to work with all of you. So I will let Amy Wells get started, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about what to pay attention to when you are reading these applications. So go ahead, Annie.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. So we're going to talk a little bit about Melbourne tonight. And I know you all have received the reading tips, but we're going to go through and highlight some things for a school of this nature that is highly selective, that is holistic in admissions, meaning they're looking more than just academics, but what you do for holistic could be different. Maybe some schools need an essay, some need an essay plus letters of recommendation. That term holistic just means beyond academics only for the most part, but it can differ on what it looks like. Melbourne requires, looks like we're looking at essays. They also have letters of recommendation, so you have lots of things to look at. So we're going to go through some highlights of these pieces. Also a reminder that we are in a pretend world where COVID did not happen. So there was no digital learning, there was no virtual, there was no interruption to activities. So these will look a little bit different than potentially some of what your activities will look like depending on what grade level you're in. But at Melbourne, we're going through this, looking also at the institutional needs and priorities of the institution. And these could differ from school to school, they will. They could also differ from year to year. So you're looking at that. The Melbourne profile is also really helpful as we go through this as well. But thinking on, starting at the beginning of the personal information. As I tell students when I'm looking at speaking with them, when you submit your application to me, as we've mentioned, it's a profile of you. It's information. It's a complete package. You have 16 pages or so, depending on what application platform you're using. All of the information that a college sees needs to be in that application. We may meet you at a college fair. When I'm reviewing your application, for the most part, it's what's in that application file. So make sure anything you want shared is listed there through that. So that personal information, are there special circumstances? Do you have an alumni relation? Is that important to the institution? Do you have a sibling that attended? For some schools, have you visited? We see some of that in the notes today. Some schools will track demonstrated interest. If you're looking at a school that tracks it, what counts for them as demonstrated interest? Is it an email? Is it a visit? Is it you saw them at a college fair? Is it you got on an email list? So think about those as you go through as well. Looking at the transcript. Looking largely at that, what are the rigor of classes that you took? What was available from that school? You see the school profile in this package, which helps you understand the context of the school. Some schools will have honors and AP courses. We see some today that don't have AP courses, but we hear still notes about the rigor of the applicants and what they've taken through that as well. So your transcript helps us understand what classes that you took, how did you do in those classes, do we see a grade trend up or down, and that context of your high school comes from the school profile. What did you take within what was offered through that as well? Also within what are challenging classes offered, did that change, etc. Your SAT, ACT scores. We're going to pretend for a minute that Melbourne requires testing. So we have SAT here. Many schools do not have a preference on SAT or ACT, but figure out which foot you want to set forward with those tests. Also know that some schools will superscore. Looks like Melbourne does as well. We have the highest subset scores from different test dates. If you're looking at schools, make sure you have that information as well. For this, we just put them all for SAT because it's simpler, or the Atlanta Pro Counselors did, which is wonderful. Does your testing mirror with your course study? Does your test score agree with the grades you've gotten in classes, or is it different? Maybe for some, is it helpful to see the testing because it puts the high school classes in context? Or do you do well in classes, but you don't test well? And so understanding that, especially when we talk about test optional later on tonight. And then the activities. What have you done? Is that school-related activities? Is that personal? Is that a club sport? Is that an extracurricular activity? Is that community service? Is that a part-time job? Is that family responsibilities? What have you done with your time? Can be related to school, doesn't have to be. Also relates that all three of these applicants are coming to us from very different parts of the country. And so what's available to them, what involvement and impact and leadership looks like in their area, could look very different from each other. So understand the context of that as well. Many of us will read by area. We have specific states or markets, so we're aware of what's going on. Melbourne, we're assumed for tonight, reads the same way. So they're aware of that as you go through. Then your essay. As we've talked about, you have a lot of things going on your junior, senior year applying to college. When you get to your senior year, if you're applying to a school that requires an essay, as Melbourne does, you fully control that piece. Take a breath and write the essay. It's benefit to draft it. We have 3 different styles of essays today. What stood out to you? Was it fun to read? Did you get a sense of who that person is as you go through? Also, did you learn about them? Did you learn about somebody else? Do you know anything extra about the student who is applying? It's really helpful if you write an essay about yourself. I've read a lot of essays about grandmothers. I love my grandmother. Grandmother's great. Grandmother's not the one applying to school. Help me learn about you as a student. And we see various ways of that through the application essay, through that as well. But take some time with it through. And then letters of recommendation. I can get a sense of who you are in your classrooms from your teachers, who you are in your high school context from your counselors. Some of you may be, all of you are at schools who have a really low student-to-counselor ratio. You're going to hear, they're going to know you well. Some of these students are at larger schools. Their counselors may not know them as well, so I get more information from the teachers. They know you in context of your classes as well. So all of these pieces come together to get a full viewpoint. If you just read one piece of that student, you wouldn't see the full applicant from Melbourne today. You need all of those pieces as Melbourne goes through and makes that decision. So a big holistic part, a lot of context with that, and then the universe priorities in the same time all wrap up together to help make that decision.
Great. Thank you. And now Allison North is going to talk to us a little bit more specifically about Melbourne and what they're looking for in their profile. So keep this in mind as you are in your committees and making these decisions.
Yes, so when we're in an admissions committee, we always want to make sure that we have the best interest of our university in mind. So for Melbourne University, you want to think about, hopefully you read the profile. If not, definitely read that. But they have a lot of wants and a lot of needs. So we're always taking that into consideration when we're reviewing our applicants. So Melbourne would like to improve diversity. So that could be geographic diversity, racial and socioeconomic diversity. All of that factors into the decision making. So if a student is coming from a different state that maybe they don't usually get students from, are they taking that into consideration? Absolutely. Is a student applying to business or engineering, which are more of their selective programs? They're looking at that. And so there's so many factors in the decision-making process, but there's not one factor that always sticks out and is that decision maker. So you want to make sure we're looking for students that are truly going to thrive on Melbourne's campus and really do well there. So remember, it's not one factor. It's really all of them that go into that consideration.
Yeah. Also, just a side note, we do have 2 athletes in the pool, but neither of them are being recruited by Melbourne. Just kind of pay attention to that. So in a little bit, we're going to provide each committee with 30 minutes to discuss the 3 applications. And during that time, you're going to visit with groups to provide your insight, or actually, we're going to visit and just kind of go through and provide insight and make sure that you are thinking through all the applications and what they might be looking at when they are in the committees themselves. So as far as just some more general guidance, I'll let you 3 share some general guidance that you have. If you want to go ahead, I can.
So a couple things to keep in mind too. One is when you're looking at the high schools of each of these students, keep in mind that every school is different. So when you're looking at curriculum, you cannot just judge a student based on, hey, this school has this school has that. Really keep in mind and look at the information of what's being offered, the curriculum. That's something that we as admissions officers really take into account because the child can't control what's being offered in the curriculum. So really paying attention to that because we'll take the note to see how are they challenging themselves within the school itself. Is it AP? Is it IB? Is it dual enrollment? Maybe they don't offer anything because the curriculum is stated as a very high honors course right there. I'm trying to think of anything else. And then just making sure, one part of it you want to make sure is we have a statement there, why Millburn. This is going to come into play because we want to see why they're choosing. Is it just a regurgitation of what's on the website, or are they really digging deep? And that's where demonstrated interest comes into play. Where we want to see is this student really interested and why they're interested? Give us a deeper meaning on that, but that'll be one key thing when you're looking at the why Millburn essay.
Hello. Oh, good. It works. Hi, guys. Excited to be here with you all tonight. You guys will have these packets in front of you. Included is going to be the common application. You're going to see their essays. You're going to see their letters of recommendation from their counselors and teachers. You're going to have a few minutes to gather and to review all of those materials. We're going to recommend that you kind of look at each applicant individually, discuss them, and then move on. But I also want you all to be aware that you're going to find a first reader review note section at the back. And this is a piece of paper that is written from the perspective of a reader, of an admissions advisor, and kind of their thoughts, their off-the-cuff comments, their biggest takeaways from each applicant. So I'll encourage you all to look at these, but also you may disagree with them. You may agree with some, you may disagree with others, but hopefully this can also be utilized as you all discuss.
I'm going to do the same thing. I feel like an influencer, like I should be on TikTok right now with a small mic. This is new for me. Sorry about that. My Fitbit told me that I'm super excited, apparently. So things that I want to share with all of you, that this process is really a collaborative exercise, and it is a simulation, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but as we've already alluded, these are really 3 strong students, and I don't know if we'd ever be in a situation that we'd have to decide how we are deciding tonight. Ideally, we would be able to accept everybody, but that's also not the world that we live in, right? And so I will offer at the get-go that we know that the college admissions process and application process, one, is really exciting. It should be, but we also know that it's really stressful. And I don't want to get up here and also ask that you know that it's a humanizing process, but you are going to go through the simulation of the difficulty that is a review committee, and that difficult conversations have to be had. We're not looking for reasons to deny students. We're looking for reasons to accept them, right? And so that's partly my plea to say, please be nice to admissions folks, because we are humans too. None of us get in this job to have difficult conversations or to not make your dream come true. And so I'll get off that soapbox, but I just want you to know that it is a humanizing process on both sides of things. And so you'll see that in the simulation. And again, the simulation is collaborative. So we don't want you to just meet and then say, let's vote right now. Talk through things, think through the files. You may disagree. And when we probably do a poll at the end, you're going to see that there's going to be probably some differences too, and that's okay. That's what the practice is all about. And this is just a reminder of things that we've already talked about, but especially Allison hitting on who we are as Millburn. Millburn, we are Millburn. And so if you're not familiar with who you are and who we are, familiarize yourself and think back to the things that we're really reviewing, which, as a reminder, is that school report, the school record in terms of grades and rigor of schedule, standardized test scores, character and personality qualities, recommendations, essays, extracurriculars, all of the things. And so think back to that profile and enjoy the practice that is a review committee, and we'll be around.
Okay, so we will go ahead and kind of start the timer. You have 30 minutes to discuss as a committee, and make sure you write down your decisions at the end, because you will need to share them with all of us, and we're going to kind of compare what different committees decided. If you have any questions, just raise your hand, but we'll kind of be walking around to give you advice as well. And when you have 5 minutes left, we will let you know. So go ahead and begin. Remember, you admit one. You can only admit one. And then you can choose to waitlist one, and you have to deny one. Okay, let's begin.
Admissions committees, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, the reviews need to come to an end, and you need to select a spokesperson from your group who will share your committee's decisions with us. Oh, and if you are sitting near the back, will you please move back to the front but stay with your committee, but just kind of move closer to the front. Stand and move. If you're past the last 10 rows, please move closer to the front. Grown-ups, this does include you as well. Yeah. And kind of try to stay with your committee. Do we want them to give any reasoning, Catherine? Do we want them to explain their reasoning? Quickly. Okay. Okay. Student group 1. Who is y'all's spokesperson? Okay. If you could stand up and give us your final decisions and just a quick 30-second what y'all's rationale was behind those decisions. Oh, you've got notes on your phone? Oh, love it.
Hey, y'all. Okay, so our decision was we denied Jacob because we felt he just didn't really stand out as a student. His test scores they were good, but not as good as the others. And then he referred to SMU in his essay, which that's obviously not a good thing. And in his essay, we just didn't really like the vibe he was giving off. And then we decided to accept Kenny because we really liked his essay and the additional info in which he said he had an attitude change, which led him to bringing up his grades as he got further along in high school. And the school he went to as well was a really good school. So we liked that he showed growth. And also his essay, it was really interesting, the topic he talked about and how that really changed how he views the world. And then Libby, we waitlisted her. She had good test scores. She had a good, really well written essay and a rigorous schedule. Her school didn't offer any APs, but they did offer honored courses, and she took a lot of those. And she's a first-generation college student. She had good grades, but they kind of dropped in 11th grade, which wasn't really great. So yeah, that was our reasonings.
Thank you. All right, parent group 1.
Kenny Davis Martin, we decided to admit. He was coming from a prestigious private school, and although he started off weak with his grades, he picked it up, and I mentioned the term epiphany. You know, sometimes it's extremely important when people become self-motivated, and then they show it in their scores and in their effort. His test scores were obviously pretty good, which kind of supports his end of the career, high scoring in classes. Lots of AP and honors classes. And one of the things we focused on was the diversity that he exhibited. He had 2 moms, mixed race, and also his diversity in the activities, community service, athlete, and a couple of other points. His recommendations were good. One of the things we noted about his essay was that he focused on everything, well, lots of things other than himself. And so in discussion with one of the representatives here, that may be a factor in evaluating him, that he should focus more on himself. But we admitted him. Grayson, we put on the wait list. And again, we also know the SMU in the essay. And, you know, one of the issues here was that this is probably a common application, and they're cutting and pasting a lot of this stuff in. But he still has to edit it. His highlight was lots of AP and honors classes and almost straight A's throughout. His test scoring was a little bit low, and one of the recommendations talked about his test anxiety. The school was pretty good, Magnet School, National Blue Ribbon School, and one of the big things was his dance. And a male with dance is one of the things they wanted to take. And so he was high on the list. But we can't pick everybody. So he went onto the wait list. I think I covered decent points on that. Lib Thompson, we denied. You know, she's coming from a small school out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, and she wants to go to a Kansas school. There's this kind of lack of regional diversity in that regard, and that is taken into consideration. Her test scores were actually pretty good, and she was National Honor Society, and she had some limited activities. Her big selling point was that she worked with her dad at CJ Repair and helped out the family 20 hours a week, and that's, you know, reasonably impressive in trying to maintain academic course load. And she hadn't visited the school, and you know, that may be kind of tough when economic things, and she did have a brother in Kansas City, where I guess, where the school is, and that was a consideration as well, but we denied her. So admit, wait, and denied.
Okay, student group 2. And if you have some of the same sentiments that have been shared about these students, don't feel like you need to elaborate as much, but if you have some hot takes, we would also love to hear those. Yep.
So we decided to accept Kenny Davis Martin. We thought that he was just a good overall student who did really well in all of his courses, unlike, wait, I wasn't really prepared for this, sorry. Okay. Basically, we waitlisted Lib because we thought that she did pretty well in all of her courses, and her test was in the middle 50%, and she had some good extracurriculars. We accepted Kenny. We thought that, well, he worked pretty well. I forget why. We denied Grayson because we thought that we didn't really like his writing too much, and the fact that he mentioned that our college in it was really a bit of something we didn't like about it. And we thought that he was a bit of a one-trick pony. And really, that's about it. Thank you.
All right, parent group 2.
Okay, we decided to admit Lib. And we decided to admit Lib because she did not have access to as many AP courses. However, she took 8 honors courses, was in Spanish, had early dismissal, and went to work. She took the SAT one time, while the other 2 took the SAT and probably got the super score added in, possibly. But she took it one time, and she ended up with a 1320. We also took into consideration, Erica shared this with a group about the junior ROTC, and that with that military commission, that the military also would pay for her college, possibly. Is that right? Okay. So she might be a wonderful candidate, even though she might have initially needed some financial aid, by having this ROTC commission that would help her pay for it, for her college. She was in National Honor Society. Her mother and father both worked. Mom at Walmart, dad at... and first generation. She would be the first generation to attend. So socioeconomic, first generation, we felt like she was doing the best that she could with the options that she had placed in front of her. So we felt like she was a go-getter. Her essay was very creative and stood out and just kind of shared about what her world was like. While we didn't dismiss the other 2 by any stretch of the matter, we put Kenny on the wait list. He brought some diversity, clearly had some good test scores as well, took the AP psychology exam and ended up with a 5 on that exam, had an internship. So we would put him on the wait list. And then we decided to deny Jacob. We felt like his aspirations may be something a little bit bigger, like headed toward Broadway maybe, and he maybe needed SMU to get him there. So there you go.
All right, student group 3.
So we decided to deny Kenny because one of the first details in the school's description is that this is a liberal arts school, and Kenny didn't do very much liberal arts related. He played a lot of soccer, but also he didn't do very much activity related because he did play soccer, but that was really most of what he did. And we decided to waitlist Lib and accept Grayson. We decided to accept Grayson because, again, this is a liberal arts school. He went to a fine arts high school, and he was a very, adamant dancer. He also sang in the choir. And we decided to waitlist Lib because Socioeconomically, Grayson had a little less of an advantage with one of his parents passing away, and that goes into having a more diverse socioeconomic demographic.
All right, parent group 3.
I see no reason to be redundant. I think many of the points were already hit, but we're going to go with Liz as the one that we select and admit. She's going to have a work ethic. She's already proven that. Diverse because of the engineering. Brother went in the military. She could have gone that route. She's chosen a different route. I think she's going to get in there and really appreciate what she has. So we went with her. Now, we also had a vote for Jacob Grayson. We've decided to wait list him. They're all really close. I'd say she was just a little bit stronger is why we went with her. And then the fellow in the middle, I don't remember his name right now, Kenny. It was the stud man that really, I think, turned us off. I mean, he's this sensitive guy, about his moms and all this, and then he's stud man. We just, a lot of words, but what's he really showing us? So we weren't impressed by him.
All right, student group 4.
Hello. We decided to admit Kenny because he showed determination with his grade improvement. We decided to deny Grayson because of his essay. We thought that he probably wants to go to a better school for dance. Not saying that they're a better school, but I think he just wanted to go somewhere else, and he didn't really show that he wanted to go to Millbourne enough. We decided to waitlist Libby because she has a lot going for her, and she had the least out of the rest of them. And I think that her test grades, even though the fact that she took it once, I think shows that if she did take it multiple times, she would have done better than the other people.
All right, parent group 4.
We're going to try to keep it to like a minute.
You're going to talk fast, too.
Okay, so we looked at it a little bit differently. We did admit Kenny. The reason we did is we felt that he was the student that wanted to go to the school the most. And because of his stick-to-itiveness, when you get into college and it gets really, really difficult that first semester, you have to be able to kind of right-size yourself, and he was able to own that in high school and was able to right-size himself, and he really wanted to be there, so that would help him really stick to staying. We did not admit Grayson because if he breaks his ankle while he's dancing, we're not really sure that he wants to be at that school, and it doesn't really align with the other subjects that he's interested in. So we didn't think that he would even stay, even though he was really wanted by the school. So we kind of took that into account. And then we waitlisted Lib, and the reason we waitlisted her is because we felt that maybe she wasn't completely interested in going to the school, but she was interested because her family was there. I think the bigger issue is that it might have a socioeconomic impact on her family because they depended on her, and that might draw her back home and potentially, not keep her at school. So that's why we waitlisted her.
All right, student group 5.
Okay, so for Grayson, we decided to waitlist him because he didn't really seem that interested in the school because he copied and pasted the same letter to multiple other ones. And although he had ties with the dance instructor, we thought that was good, and that's why we waitlisted him. We're denying Kenny because in his essay he only talked about his moms, and we didn't really learn that much about himself. And for Libby, we're accepting her because she showed a variety of interests and had really good test scores and really good academics, and we really liked her essay.
Parent group 5.
Parent group 5.
So we'll keep it short. We admitted Lib, and we waitlisted Grayson, and we denied Kenny for a lot of the similar reasons. I think it's pretty interesting how all the students are on the same page and all the parents are a bit of a mess.
All right, student group 6. If y'all might not have had a number.
You're in the front.
Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? No, it's your turn. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, we originally decided to deny Lib, right? But after what I heard about all the comments, I feel like we should definitely give this well-rounded, nice, and kind girl a chance, like to keep her academic career.
So the director of admissions has just gone rogue and is making his own decisions completely. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just
great.
based on personal, because us being said by a lot of other groups that very tough situations going on, and it's a small school, but she tried her best. So yeah, I will waitlist her, but I don't know about the committee. Yeah. All right.
Love this.
And for long story short, for Kenny, one major trait for him is leadership. I mean, man, what a journey, right? Like start off rock bottom from a freshman year, but now on the top of the world. A very athletic person, and also I think the political club president shown a lot of leadership. So definitely the one that can make a positive difference to the world. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, so you're admitting Kenny? Yeah. Okay.
And
Any other parent
denying
groups
Grayson.
that haven't spoken?
Okay.
Any other student groups? We got a couple. Oh, y'all in the back?
One more. Last one. Who's your spokesperson?
We rejected Jacob because he didn't want to go to the school really, and he just copied he didn't really care for the school. He just wanted to go because. And then we waitlisted Kenny because he is very diverse, but he wouldn't really be good in an art school. And then we allowed Lib because they're a hard worker.
So as Ann and Catherine mentioned earlier, admissions priorities and expectations can change from year to year, and it varies from college to college. So now we're going to turn it over to our admissions representatives, and they're going to tell you what institutions they are with, if you don't already know, and kind of how these applicants would have been evaluated at their schools.
Okay, so again, my name is Allison North, and I am from the University of Vermont. So we have a lot of institutional goals, and it's really hard. And I was working with Parent Group 1 a lot, and I think it's hard to imagine these three and having to be kind of cutthroat with the only admit one, waitlist one, and deny one, because I could see all three of them possibly doing well on our campus, and some of them particularly thriving on our campus. This is really tough. And I've thought about it, and I kind of go back and forth, but I'm probably going to go with Kenny for admitting him. And then I'm really stuck on the other two. I'll just be very honest. And it would definitely be one that would go to committee review that we would discuss further. But if I had to right now, I would probably say Lib for waitlist and Grayson for deny. But if I'm being truly honest, it would probably be Grayson waitlist and Lib deny. And it's still very hard. So, yeah.
Hello again. Again, Annie Wells, and I am at Vanderbilt University. So we will see some of this caliber across the board as we go through. But again, as we've spoke tonight, I could make an argument for each of them. Looking at what Milburn, and a Vandy officer of Milburn looking at, I would admit Lib. For some of the reasons you have said tonight and some different ones as well. I would waitlist Kenny, because I think he has high likelihood to accept off the waitlist if we needed to go to the waitlist, because he really wants to be here. And then I would deny Grayson, but not for the SMU comment, It matters a little bit less to us if you say the same school or not. We would like you to say the right school. It helps. But at least for folks I've talked to, is not the stroke of death that many of you all added it in tonight. It was just less shiny. Kenny had some of the best letters of recommendation I have read. Lib had a really great essay and a lot of compelling with her, and she is a female coming to engineering. Yes, she did not visit, but she's very excited to come. And at least Melbourne, we have no information if they're look at demonstrated interest or not. But admit Lib, waitlist Kenny, and then deny Grayson.
And again, Jose Garcia from Rhodes College, very similar. This would have been in a committee where we would have been looking at impact. Then it's something we talk about as a game changer. How is the student going to game change not only our campus, not only the community, but honestly the world? And we're looking at 3 of these kids, so I'm on the same boat. I would have taken Lib, I would have waitlisted Kenny, and I would have denied Grayson. And again, this is something where I think you're never going to get unanimous decisions, but I think you're looking at, the biggest thing we're looking at is how's this student really going to, really influence our campus, influence our student body, influence the world. And I look at Lib, and I look at a person that, I think it was mentioned, work ethic. I look at, everything that she's been through, but also the impact of that leadership quality that sometimes you can't see in other students. And there is some bias in there because of our backgrounds. You got to understand that some of us come from, as admissions officers, were raised in different backgrounds of that nature, so that'll come to play because we look at these students and sometimes we see ourselves. We see that we were that same kid, we were that, but then at the same time, it's not this cutthroat, but it is a discussion piece in there, and it is, you will see that admissions officers will get very, very attached, especially if there is a connection piece, and let alone if you've conversated, met them, and it's become that piece. But yeah, same as Vandy, I would go with that decision piece.
Hi guys. Okay, we're going to tag team this. I'm Lady Frances Hamilton, and I am the new admissions advisor for Auburn University for the state of Tennessee. Fun fact for everyone in here, this is Katie Morgan. Katie was my admissions advisor and recruited me out of high school, and has recently kind of transitioned into a new role.
Yay. I don't know if this is where, I'm just going to take it off the lapel. Yes. Katie Morgan, Auburn University. I have worked with some of you in here, perhaps for several years if you had older siblings or older children, and so the bittersweetness of a new role means that I won't be working with you all directly, but you're in really good hands with Lady Frances, and it's just a sweet, tender little full circle moment up here. In terms of Auburn's purposes, what is easy about this is that we don't have a dance major, so
it eliminates one.
Goodbye, Grayson. You will have
Best
to
wishes.
dance. You'll have to dance somewhere else, and I love that for you. And then if we had to choose, I don't know if we'd do a very good job.
We also don't have a wait list, you guys, so to be honest, we're taking Kenny and Lib.
Congrats.
War Eagle.
Yeah, and our process may look different from other schools, and that's the beauty and the curse of the admissions process, right? We like to make things confusing because every school is a little bit different, but that also speaks to institutional goals as well. And so our review process, we don't look at things like essays and recommendation letters. So we do an academically focused review, but there's a lot to that, and context really matters at Auburn as well. And so that just speaks to the difference in the review process from school to school. But we wish Grayson the best elsewhere.
I'm sure he will dance away somewhere else. So that was actually such a great thing to end on, because one factor to think about when you were reviewing these applicants, of course, was their standardized test scores, because in this world, Milburn was test required. And so when a school is looking at testing, that is one piece. It is also important to talk about how a number of schools across the country are test optional. Currently, it sits around 80% of colleges and universities in the United States have some test optional policy, whether that is a full test optional policy that you can choose to submit scores or not. Some schools will have one if you have a certain GPA that you can then go test optional. Other schools, such as the UC system, University of California, they're test blind. So even if you make a 36 on the ACT, that's amazing for you, but they will not consider it as part of your application. And so what you need to do as students, if you're a junior, you've met with your college counselor a few times already, maybe started to have these conversations. If you're a sophomore, you can start thinking about it right now, kind of figuring out what the next few years might look like. But what you need to do is put good tools into your toolbox. And so when you're thinking about having standardized testing at your disposal in a way, even if you don't use it, that is what we recommend in the College Counseling Office at Baylor. So we have students who we recommend that they take one SAT and one ACT pretty early, so in that junior year, and figure out which one is better for you. I always like to tell students it's not which one you like more, because do we like taking a test for 3 hours on a Saturday? No, and that's okay. But which one do you tolerate more? And what happens is that you tend to know. And if you don't know, your scores tend to tell you. So who in the room, student-wise, raise your hand if you've taken an SAT. Every junior should raise their hand. Raise your hand if you've taken an ACT. Raise your hand if you're taking an ACT on Saturday. Yeah, that's going to be so fun. I'll be there too. But that's an important thing to think about. So you're doing great work right now because you all are, 1 to 2 years out of making this decision. But the most important thing to note, so you take these exams, you figure out which one's the best fit for you, you focus on that exam when it comes to prep and when it comes to taking it again, if that is within your means. The important thing, though, to think about is that these schools may or may not be test optional. You are not test optional. So while you may submit your score to one school, you don't have to submit them to all. And you all already have access to SCORE, which is the wonderful database that we have. I know some of you, it's fun, we can see your login numbers. I don't know if you know that. So it's really fascinating. So if you've logged in once, we know. If you've logged in 142 times, we know that too. But you can actually look in there and see what the middle 50% and the average SAT and ACT scores are for every school in SCORE. And so this is an easy formula. If you fit in that 50% or higher, you will likely submit your scores. If you are lower and it's test optional, you likely will not submit your scores. And the great thing is so that's one tool, 2 tools that you have in your toolbox. So your 2 test scores potentially focusing on the one. The other tool that you have to take advantage of is your college counselor. So you will have a conversation with us as you are applying to schools in your senior year to figure out what the best path is. And it's actually amazing because SCORE just added a feature where you can mark if you're applying test optional. And so we can have that conversation, mark it in real time, and figure out what the best path is for you. If you have any questions about testing, you can ask any of your college counselor. If you're a junior, if you're a sophomore, you're always welcome to stop by. But I think the biggest takeaway is that while we considered it as a required factor today, it will not necessarily be a required factor. And especially after COVID, when access to tests was reduced, it has become less of a factor. The final point is, especially for sophomores, you are not applying to schools for a little chunk of time. I know it feels like very far away right now, but it'll come at you. The policy may change. So you might look at a school today and say, oh, they're test optional. It's my dream school. I don't have to worry about it. But you don't know if that's going to be different in a year or two. So have the tools in your toolbox. Talk with your college counselor, and we'll make the best choice for you for each school.
Okay, and before we close, I just have one more question, and I didn't tell y'all I was going to ask you this. But as you were going around, was there anything that you heard students or parents discussing that you maybe didn't think would be important to your institution or you would view differently at your institution that you would like to share with us? Any takeaways from the discussions you heard? You may not have an answer.
I'll add one that I heard. Asking about how many times a student takes the ACT or SAT, if your institution looks at it. And I can say just with all the universities I've worked for, I've only worked for 3, but every single time, that has never been a factor on how many times you have taken it. If you're submitting those test scores and they take the super score, then, that really helps you out. And I've never worked for a university that says, oh, they've taken it 5 times, we can't admit them. So, take it as much as your heart desires, I guess.
I heard a comment, 2, if I can speak on 2. One about
Absolutely.
the diversity of location. Yes, we're looking at a school that was in the same state as the high school the student was applying from, but very different parts of that state. Vandy also just launched a rural initiative starting with rural students in Tennessee. So yes, they're in the same state, but we're looking for rural students within that state, and that may expand. Other schools may be similar. So diversity of geographic can be the same state. It can also be different locations within the state or different varieties. And then the comment about a student, well, it's a liberal arts institution, but they haven't done much liberal arts activities. There are many places for students that are very well angled as well-rounded. So yes, Grayson really only danced. He danced a lot. If it's a school, sorry, Auburn, that has a dance program, that may be really important to them. And so looking at that as well, to say if you just do one thing, that for many students can be just fine. Help us understand what else you're doing with your time, but if that is taking up 30, 40 hours of your week, you don't have much to do other things as well. So think about the well-angled versus well-rounded. You have space for both at many institutions.
I think one thing that really caught my eye and hearing from some groups is y'all were focusing on the recommendation letter. You really saw that we read them verbatim. Like for the institution to do, like that's something that we take into account. And the mention of we have conversations all the time with the counselors. We literally are talking, emailing, texting, everything because we want to get every piece of information. And I think it was good to hear that that is an important key because there's things that are going to be said and things that are going to be inferred and everything of that nature, but really they know your kids. They know really well, and for us it's a great insight to that because we want to see it's a two-way street when it comes to fit. Not only do y'all fit us, but do we fit them as well? So really it was good to hear that y'all were paying attention and really seeing that rec letters, those rec letters are an important key factor in that. And for your students, for the students here, like knowing who you're going to find, and honestly, don't always go for the person that you did the best in their class or the best with them. Find somebody that you maybe had to overcome some challenge or something like that. Maybe you didn't get the best grade, or somebody that you maybe had a rocky relationship with, but it developed and you grew from that. But always think about that diversity among your recommendation letters. And to be honest, last thing, we were good with 3 or 4, not 18 to 20. So just knowing that we'll get a gist. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
I think I just shared to really get to know your college counselor. Is that right? I think I did. Yeah.
Something super quick, I heard in passing a comment about demonstrated interest, and this student has visited, this student has not. For Auburn's purposes, that's not something that we're going to track, though I do not want you to be discouraged by that. Please come and see us. That is my favorite part of my job, is getting to meet y'all, see y'all on campus. I think it's such a wonderful way to gain valuable insight as to what life is like at that institution. Cannot speak for our peers here, but for our purposes, that's not going to be something. It's no red flag for Auburn, but please do come down and visit us when you're able to.
Couple of thoughts, one directly off of demonstrated interest and also related to the score comment about seeing how many times you've logged in. We also have the ability to see how many times you've logged into your portal or opening an email, and that's not trying to play the big brother role and like, oh, are you looking? But you may be missing things. So that's not demonstrated interest, but it kind of is in a different way. So hear me when I say it's just important that you're checking your email regularly, while also I want to acknowledge as a steward of higher education that you're going to get a lot of them. So you may feel overwhelmed, and I apologize on the behalf of all of us as institutions as a whole. But check your email. One other comment that I had that's kind of not off topic, but it was not related to cases. I'm not going to look at the student because I don't want you to feel like I'm calling you out. It was a very good question. It was a very good question. And it may not relate to anybody else in the room, but I'm going to say it. The question was, what if I have a connection to a university or like a family member to is that something I talk about? And I just offer that can be certainly part of your story, but I would hesitate for it to be your whole story. So if you've got some reason why you like an institution, and it's because your parents went there, or both your parents or your grandparents and your great-grandparents, that may be a story that sounds familiar at Auburn. But for us and other institutions, think of why it matters to you. We are not recruiting fans, we are recruiting students. So it could be a part of your story, but not the whole story. So I'll leave with that. I'll leave with that.
Thank you. So a lot of factors went into today's decisions, and as you can see, we really didn't agree that much, except maybe not to admit Grayson. But all of this goes to say, students, you are not a decision. Do not take these decisions personally, because there are so many factors that go into these decisions. So a denial may have nothing to do with you or your application, but simply the institution's priorities. So please, please keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and give our admissions experts a round of applause. And we are about out of time, so if you do have questions, we'll be up here just in the front, but you can go ahead. You are dismissed. Thank you.